Hey, you guys. My name is Tom, and I'm here from Valve with my colleague Alden. We're doing a super quick run-through on a bunch of interesting things related to how to make the most of your release on Steam. And so, again, this is kind of a speed run through a bunch of different topics. If you're watching here or watching the video later on, we've tried to include a bunch of links to documentation so you can take pictures or pause the video and dig in deeper to some of these more specific topics. Plus, Alden is going to chat a little bit at the end about a new look to our kind of Steamworks landing page and a few improvements to our resources pages. So you already market your game in a lot of places. You're probably talking to customers about your game in dozens of different spots, and shipping a game on Steam is no replacement for all that hard work you're doing. We're going to focus specifically on some tools that are available on the Steam store and the platform, but in no way is this meant to replace or supersede all the hard work you're doing to market your games on all the stores that you sell it and all the different locations where you want to reach customers. The agenda is pretty straightforward. I'm going to start with a few topics related to pre-release marketing, kind of how to build your audience before your game comes out. Alden's going to talk about release and post-release, some of the different ways you can expand your audience and keep customers coming back to your game over time, and highlight some of those new additions to Steamworks. Through all this, we encourage you to take a long-term view. The example that I think most easily comes to people's mind is watching a movie. You almost never walk up to the theater and just randomly pick a movie from the marquee and buy a ticket. What's much more likely is that you've heard about this movie from a dozen different people or sources over many weeks or months, and that's what actually converts you to make a transition. All those impressions and traffic, maybe ads that you've bought on other places, conversations you've had, conferences you've attended, demos you've run, betas, those are all valuable even if they don't immediately convert to purchases. And I mentioned ads briefly. It's important to note on Steam specifically that we don't sell ads. There's no way for you to pay Valve or anybody else to get more visibility on Steam. The store is personalized for every user. So things like recommendations, what your friends are playing, curators, your language preferences, developers you follow, all of that's what feeds into what customers see. So you can't buy ads, and it's worth calling that out before we dig into the tools. We have quite a laundry list here. I'm going to go over all of these different topics sort of rapid pace. We could probably do a 30-minute talk on any one of these topics. So this is just here's some features, here's the general outline of them, and do more research on them if you want to take advantage of them in the future. We're going to start with being able to track your traffic. We've invented a bunch of new ways for customers to discover your game on Steam that Alden and I will both talk about. And we've also made it easier for you to track over time. So every app landing page has this marketing and visibility section where you can see your data over time. And this is what that looks like. It lets you track visits from specific locations on the store and inside the community. You can view external traffic to your Steam store page from other places. And you can even download this as a CSV. So if you've got a business intelligence unit or you love data yourself and you want to build spreadsheets of how your visibility changed over time, et cetera, please take advantage of this. The next thing we're going to chat about is your coming soon page. This is sort of the bread and butter of your presence on Steam. A good example is this one, the game Void Bastards, which is maybe out or is about to come out. But I took a quick screen grab of their coming soon page. This is where you can show screenshots, short description, explain the system requirements, all that kind of nuts and bolts stuff. And you want to get this coming soon page live sooner rather than later. We recommend publishing it as soon as you're ready to talk about your game publicly. If your game has a Twitter account, if you have attended a show, if you're talking to your game with publishers, whatever the case may be, it's worth making sure your page has some presence. This makes sure that when somebody types in the name of your game, whether it's into the Steam search bar or Google or anywhere else, they actually find something that they can connect with. And it's important that they be able to find something and have some sort of marketing call to action. This is obviously something that's going to matter in lots of places, but on Steam specifically, we tend to talk about wishlisting. So your marketing call to action is your callback anytime you're talking about your game to users to take an additional step. Add it to your wish list, buy it today, subscribe to our channel, follow us on such and such, and so on and so forth. These call to actions are really important, and on Steam specifically, you want to gather as many as you can over time because they follow your product through its life cycle. So when you launch, or when you're running a discount, or if you ship a major update, like Alden's going to talk about a little bit later, all those customers who wishlisted your game early on while you were in Coming Soon get notified and sort of make your game stickier on Steam. And we encourage you to do this on every other store or platform that has similar features for you to do it. Tagging your game is really simple, but also really important. It's an easy thing that some developers kind of forget about. Tags are basically the categories, buckets for content on Steam. Things like genre or mechanics or even, perspective, point of view. They help drive recommendations and suggestions elsewhere on the store, and they make it easy for customers to search and filter. Every single product page on Steam has this really simple popular user-defined tags section. It has a little plus button, and you as a developer can click that and edit tags on your product. That means you can add ones that you think are relevant, you can remove ones that you think are irrelevant, and this is going to drive a lot of different places that your product shows up on Steam and a lot of different recommendations. So it's worth doing this as soon as you publish your Coming Soon page. You also want to think hard about preparing for the global market. Steam is a massive platform. We're all over the place. This is a map of user traffic in the last 7 days. All this info is public. I pulled this screenshot down last night from our public stats page, along with stuff like our hardware survey and how many bits we're downloading to different users. Some stuff on this map is what you'd expect, right? North America, Western Europe, they're practically rock solid. But there's also territories like Peru or Thailand or Vietnam or Sri Lanka. People are often surprised at how many users we have in India. There's lots of growing markets like that. And these customers are finding out about games in a lot of different places, in a lot of different languages. You're going to want to think about that more broadly for your product marketing strategy, even maybe when you're searching out publishers or people to collaborate or freelancers. You're also going to want to think about that in terms of customers. Steam has built in a bunch of features and tools to help you connect with those users, and here are some of the basics to prepare for that global market. Localization and language preference is huge. The documentation link here has even more info, but the Cliffs Notes version is every customer on Steam sets their own language preferences, and those language preferences help drive discoverability and recommendations. So customers will mostly see recommendations for games that have at least interface support in their languages. This means a lot of different things for a lot of different games. If you have a puzzle platformer with almost no dialogue and almost no text, you can probably localize your pause menu in a bunch of languages quickly and cheaply. If you're building a narrative-based, text adventure, it might be a much bigger expense that you're going to want to think more carefully about which languages to focus on. But Steam is so broad, and the language spread of Steam users is so diverse that it's essential that you think about this global market prior to releasing your game. This breakdown is Steam users by language. As you can imagine, languages like English and simplified Chinese are hugely popular, but there's also massive chunks of customers speaking Turkish, Brazilian Portuguese, Korean, German, and so on. This pie graph is a nice starting point, but you'll probably also want to do some of your own research about what languages might be most beneficial for you. You can even reach out to us at Valve to help get more data or make those choices. And we've also regionalized a bunch of sections of the store that a lot of people don't realize. So a queue like this one, that's the new and trending list on Steam, or top sellers or things like that, those are all country by country because tastes and preferences vary dramatically. So what's popular this week in Thailand might be different from what's popular this week in Argentina. That helps amplify those investments that you make. So if you are localizing your game into Japanese and you're the best-selling game in Japan this week, we're going to help amplify that work that you've done. We also think that pricing is a hugely important part of accessing this global market. So we've built out a tool to help you set appropriate regional pricing. There's a lot of currencies and values that we think the average developer is not going to have the time or resources to dig into. We think it's our job to do a bunch of that investment so that we can help you make smart pricing decisions in Turkey or Indonesia or Malaysia, where you might not know what an appropriate price is. You might not even know what the currency is. We don't want to make you spend a ton of time on that work, so we've tried to solve it as much as we can. However, your product is your product on Steam. So if you have different data, if you want to run an experiment, you can change your price in every region. We just give these recommendations as a starting point to try to save some time and help you optimize. Another great feature for you to take advantage of pre-release, but also post-release, is Steam keys. Steam keys are loved and trusted by customers. They're completely free to you as developers, no matter how you use them. You want to take advantage of them pre-release probably for things like press, influencers, running a beta, which I'll chat more about in a second. You can use them post-release for sale on any website or store. You can reward your Kickstarter backers with Steam keys, whatever the case may be. That's a really valuable way to get a bunch of data about your product and also get it into the hands of more people prior to launch. Another really valuable feature in the same vein is Steam Curators. So you can use Steam keys to talk to press and influencers, but you can also use the built-in Steam Curator feature. Curators are game discovery assisted by human voices. We think it's really important that non-Valve people and organizations have an opportunity to inform game recommendations. So that's what curators do. You as a developer have access to Curator Connect. You can track down different curators who are recommending games to followed customers on Steam. You can sort by tag, by language, whether the game is VR or not, if you have a Linux build and there's a cool Linux curator out there, and so on and so forth. Great way to connect with users prior to launch. And you can keep using this feature after your game comes out. Running a beta is another great tool. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that on Steam. This hardly covers everything, but you can do open or closed betas. You can revoke access to your beta after it finishes, or you can let beta testers keep the game for free. You can run the beta on like the real game, or you can create a second app ID that is used only for the beta in Steamworks if you want. We have password protected and not protected beta branches, so customers can opt into different versions of the game even after release. And even more support for betas is planned in the future. So if you're watching this talk now, or you're watching it on YouTube later, and you have feedback or suggestions or want to chat with us about how to optimize a beta, just reach out. We're working hard on that. The last thing I'll touch on is developer homepages. These are exactly what they sound like, a place for your brand and your company to have a home on Steam. This helps you build your audience over time, helps you show off all your games, DLCs, expansions. This is a place for you to make announcements, communicate with users, and Steam will automatically notify followers when you release your next game. So for Clay, they have 50,000 followers, and even if a customer never wishlisted the game or knew it existed, when Clay releases something else on Steam, all those followers will get a direct notification. This is a super powerful tool to help you get closer to your customers and build a long-term relationship with them. There's lots more too. There's a bunch of Steamworks features that most people think of as technical implementation, like workshop or inventory service or better controller support. Those are also great ways to market your game as well, and we'd encourage all developers to explore those tools prior to the release of your game. You want to think about it like a menu where you're picking the most valuable things for your content and your customers. So it's finally time to release your game. How can Steam help you on that day and beyond? I'm going to pass the mic to Alden here, and he's going to give you an update on some of those features. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tom. All right, so you've built up, prior to the release, you've built up a lot of awareness and excitement among customers. You probably have a bunch of wish lists for your game. What do you do next? Well, when it's release day, you get a nice green shiny button to release your game. So what happens when you push this game? I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to start a little bit about what happens on release day, and then how do you maintain and retain those customers and build your audience over time after release of your game. On release day, a bunch of stuff happens automatically just by releasing your game on Steam. So all the people that you have your game on your wish list, they get an email right away to say that your game is now available. People that follow your developer homepage, or if your game is part of a franchise, they also get emails to let them know that a game that they're probably interested in is now available. Your game can now appear in more places throughout the Steam store. It can be recommended to people in new places and in different places. So there's a bunch of that stuff that happens just automatically when you hit release button on Steam. A lot of that is also influenced by the energy and the activity and the excitement that you've built up over time ahead of time. So when people are playing your game, when people are buying your game, that gives us positive signal that people are interested in your game and allows it to show up in even more places. So how about after release? What can you do to make sure that your players are enjoying your game, keep coming back and playing it more, that they're telling their friends? How do you update your game, get the most out of the long lifespan of your game? Steam has a bunch of tools built in that you can use for marketing and communication. So marketing your game over time, keeping in contact and communication with your existing customers, reaching new customers. There's a bunch of things here. I'm not going to talk about all of these because we're going to be running out of time. I'm going to go into a small slice just about the game, the features that you can make use of to update your game. So why update your game? Well, updating keeps your existing fans happy and playing and coming back. That, in turn, gives positive signal to their friends and people that see them playing, see them talking about it, see them getting excited about it. Also, people playing your game makes your game more visible throughout the Steam store. So if a bunch of people are playing your game, their friends are seeing them play that game. If a bunch of people are playing your game, it shows up in places like top played games and things like that. So all of this feeds into a nice feedback loop. So when people are excited about your game and it's doing well, then more people get to see it. So how do you get the most out of updating your game? What can you make use of on Steam to get the most out of that? One of the underlying features that we have on Steam is the announcement system. So this lets you be able to communicate from you as a developer directly to your customers. So these show up in the activity feed for people that follow your game. They show up on your store page for people that are interested in checking out your game. They show up in your community hub. They show up in a number of different places. This is a feature that we're going to be expanding on and replacing with a even more robust communication system. We talked about that briefly in a GDC talk. If you want to go back and watch that video, it has some details on what that system is going to do and how that's going to work. Once you've got an announcement, you can use that along with update visibility rounds, which is a feature to tell us and our system that this is one of the biggest updates of your game and that we should amplify that and make sure it shows up to customers. What that does is it actually surfaces your game on the front page of Steam to both people that own your game so that they come back and play it again, and to people that have it on their wish list and are excited about it, and remind them that your game is fresh and evolving and expanding. The other thing you can do is now you have a bunch of new content in your game, and you have people that are excited and checking it out, and they're curious to know, well, what is this game like? What's it like to play? So we can do live streaming directly on the store page, so you can go and show players exactly what it's like to play your game. You can also update the branding on your artwork so that wherever your game is showing up in the store, players know that it's new and it's fresh and there's new content available for them to check out. And then you can tie it all together. So when you run a discount and you update your artwork with the temporary artwork overrides, then all your players that have your game on their wish list will get an email saying your game is on sale, and they'll get the artwork that says the game has been updated, and they'll know that it's exciting and it's interesting, and now is the important time to go and buy it. So we briefly went through, both Tom and I, a whole bunch of features at a really high level. If you want to learn more, we just put together and released a new set of documentation that goes into much more detail on all of these features, helps give you advice on where and when to make use of those features. So check that out, this URL. We're also posting at the same time an announcement to Steam developers, so if you are already on Steam, you should have an email shortly with links to this as well. And then we also hear from talking to game developers how many features Steam has that game developers aren't even aware exist. So we have overhauled the front page of Steamworks so that when you sign in, you can easily scroll down and be able to peruse all of the features that Steam has and get an idea of just what are the features there that you can make use of and that you can add to your game, solve problems, add to gameplay, or help you market your game. So thank you for coming. If you want to help come and work on these things, we're always hiring people. Looking for developers, engineers, designers, writers, biz dev, whatever. Check out our URL for jobs. Also, if you have questions, if you have a game on Steam, you need technical advice, you have questions, feel free to contact us. We have a contact form. It's the same people. It's Tom, it's me, it's the business team, it's the technical team. We're answering those tickets and those questions, so feel free to reach out and talk to us. Thank you. We're out of time.